So the last time you went into a restaurant and you sat down, and even though you complained about the menu, you ordered off of it. Did you ever consider if your wait staff is hungry? Did you ever consider if the waiter or waitress you had that morning, did they eat breakfast? I feel kind of crappy. I never considered that. It never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind. Could the wait staff be waiting to see if I leave anything on the plate? So the first thing I want to talk about is a friend of mine that had a phone conversation with me, and you're just gonna have to take my word. Okay, I have no reason to lie whatsoever. Okay, I just like to keep people's anonymity. It's really important to me. But a friend of mine called me, and we are just basically, this is yesterday, we are basically yakking about, how's life going, and they're having a really tough time in the job market right now. Okay, they've been kind of in and out of a few jobs. This is a wonderful person, somebody that I admire a lot. Okay, she's a very hard worker. All right. But she was telling me how in her waitressing job, okay, which is not local to me here in Tampa, okay, she's somewhere else, all right, how her waitressing job, she is so broke that she has resorted to eating the leftover food that customers leave on their plates. Now, this is interesting because she's not the first person that's told me that she's done stuff like this. And if you look at those like delivery food service drivers, the Uber Eats, Grubhub, I refuse whatsoever to ever order from them. And the reason I refuse to order from them is I think there's too much temptation in today's economy. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe it's conspiracy theory. Who knows? All right. Okay. I'm always afraid they're going to dip in and eat the food. And here's the thing. I really don't even care that they take a bite of the French fry. Believe it or not. And I was like, whatever. You need it more than I do. The problem is it's the germ transferring. I hope that makes sense. It's not because, I think my food is the most important thing in the world, okay? Per se. But the problem I have is it's the germs, okay? You're touching your steering wheel, you're touching doors and cars and all that, doing your delivery, and then you're reaching in potentially, all right, to grab a bit of my meal, take a sip of the drink, whatever. I've seen enough of these shows, on TV, YouTube, because I don't have cable, because I save money and I don't get cable. I haven't had cable in almost 10 years. But I've seen enough of these shows that it has completely turned me off from all food service delivery. The only food service delivery I will get might be a pizza delivered, and that's from the pizza restaurant directly. There cannot be a third party. But I can tell you that in the 10 years nearly that I've been divorced, I've had one pizza delivery. That's it. I'm just a fan of, I don't want to, part of it's because I'm cheap. All right. I don't want it. I'm the type, if you can't afford to tip for a service, certain services really do appropriately require a tip. And if I can't afford to do it, or I choose not to afford it, then I'm not going to have someone doing that type of work and I'm not going to tip them. So that's just the way I feel about it. It's fine if I don't want to, pay for someone's tip, then I will go pick it up. I'm not going to have someone come do that type of service for me and then not tip. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant. Okay. When I go to a restaurant, I make sure that I can tip 20% of the bill. If I cannot afford to tip 20 or 18%, 18, 20, okay, tomato. The difference is usually pennies, okay? If I can't afford to leave a 20% tip for my meal, then to me, that meal is too expensive. So anyways, she was telling me on the phone yesterday about how she's just having a really difficult time making ends meet. And she said that she realized that, people leave a lot of food on their restaurant table. Okay. And I said to her, are other people doing this? Well, technically you're not supposed to. It's actually illegal. I did look it up because like I said, she's the second person that I'm aware of in my personal life that has been in this type of financial situation. So she is not alone. But if you look it up, and I did, just trust me when I tell you, okay, it's obviously illegal. Okay. And any restaurant you talk to will say, well, we don't condone such a policy, yada, yada. Okay. We know that. But the bottom line is your wait staff is starving. They're underpaid, they're overworked. When you work them at, $2.50 an hour and expect the rest of them on tips, all right? They may have kids, family, spouses, whatever. How they got into that situation, that's not for us to judge, but it's kind of like that's the situation they're in right now. There's a documentary. I'll see if I can find it. And it's about a waitress. Well, it's a documentary. It had a whole lot of different people they were talking about, and this was one segment of the documentary. And the waitress literally said she makes like $2 an hour. Everything else is done on tips. Well, look at today's economy. How is a waiter or waitress, okay, I use them interchangeably, all right? How is wait staff supposed to be able to work on a couple bucks an hour and tips? And then when someone orders a meal and there's a huge chunk of food left that is untouched, all right? And I'll tell you this, my ex-husband, he was in food service. He was a food service director. And so, even though I didn't work in restaurants and stuff, I worked at, I didn't say I didn't work there, but, I would go to him sometimes, to different, culinary jobs and stuff. And, we would serve food, whatnot. It's amazing the amount of food that is left over on people's plates. I'm talking, there are people, and this is something my friend was telling me yesterday. There are people, and I can vouch for this. They take 2-3 bites. That's it. They're done. Thank you very much. Next dish. If you're hungry, you're starving perhaps, and you don't have enough money to go and buy groceries for yourself. All right. Never mind the rest of your family at this point. You don't have enough money to go buy groceries for yourself. You've just served a client a plate of food and they leave 50% or whatever of that food left. What would you do? And it's easy for us to sit and go, oh my God, that's just horrible. I would never do that. But there's something I've learned, and that is, until, I think we all know this, is that phrase, until you've walked in someone else's shoes, it's really hard to be able to criticize or to say that you wouldn't do something. I mean, I've been so broke, I didn't have 69 cents for a cheeseburger. I remember I went to a fair in my early 20s, a fair, not a fair, a fair, where there were like booths and stuff. I came out wrong, okay? But I was at a fair, and I literally, and I was broke. Okay. This is when, what my bank, Washington Mutual, before it went under, this is when my bank had my bank account would typically run under, I don't know, $5 or so. And some days it was a quarter, literally, not exaggerating. Okay. Some days less than $1. And I remember I went to this little street fair, and I had $2 for an egg roll. Literally, I had $2. That's all I had. And I went and bought an egg roll and hung out the fair for about 2 hours with my landlady, because I was renting a room from her at the time and whatnot. So we decided we would go together. Okay. She was kind of like a mother figure, I guess. All right. But I rented a room from her. So she drove me to the it's a little street corner type fair. Okay. Here in Salem, Oregon. And I had $2. So I said to my friend yesterday on the phone, I said, well, when you're eating this food, I said, how do you decide, I'm going to eat off of this plate or this plate? And one of the things that she said is, when you're the wait staff, you see who's coming in the door. You see how they're dressed. You see their manners. You see just their overall presentation. God forbid, if you saw me in a restaurant, I sat down and I ate something, you wouldn't just be totally grossed out. The thought, oh my goodness, she ate off that plate, right? In other words, they see the customers. The wait staff sees the customer. And you can go, I'd never eat after that customer, but this customer, yeah, they're clean, they're tidy, they dress well, all of that stuff. When we sit and we are in a restaurant, it never, in my mind, in 57 years, it never dawned on me that my wait staff might be hungry. And, that is something that it almost makes me feel very selfish about. because I sit and I complain about the cost of food and I moan and groan. I went to the grocery store today just for myself to feed me 2 bags of salad, and it was buy one, get one free day. Okay. I think it was a tub of cottage cheese, a pack of, and I always buy the no name brand cottage cheese because it's too expensive to go with that fancy stuff. Okay. And then I think I bought a couple of oranges. Have you seen the prices of oranges? Oranges are running almost $1 a piece at Walmart. Oh, hello, Jamie. Welcome, welcome. Okay, oranges are running almost $1 a piece at Walmart. It was like $13 was my total thing. And here's the sad part: there wasn't a meal in there. There wasn't actually a meal, right? And I'm aware people say you get chicken and rice. Okay, we can all do that, but I got to have the lettuce also. So I'm working really hard, at making sure that the stuff I buy has some healthy stuff to it, and to stay away from all that box stuff. But as much as I complain, as much as we all complain, the bottom line is, the last time you went into a restaurant and you sat down, and even though you complained about the menu, you ordered off of it. Did you ever consider if your wait staff is hungry? Did you ever consider if the waiter or waitress you had that morning, did they eat breakfast? I feel kind of crappy. I never considered that. It never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind. Could the waitstaff be waiting to see if I leave anything on the plate? Now, I actually looked this up, like I was saying a few minutes ago, and one of the things that I read about is a lot of waitstaff, the one thing that they will finish is a bottle of wine, okay? But then again, that's because a wine goes in one direction. Typically, people don't chug out of the bottle, okay? At least not in, nice restaurants. But it almost made me feel like, oh my God, where's my sensitivity? Because it never dawned on me that the person serving me might not be able to afford the meal they're serving me. So I want you to think about that the next time you go to a restaurant and you think you want to try to shortchange the staff, and not leave 20%. Now, again, I understand service and how important it is. And honestly, my standards, I'm not going to say they're low, but, I understand that the people that are serving me are also dependent on, perhaps how nice the hostess was when she greeted me, he or she, how quickly, how quickly the kitchen's doing their job, a lot of factors. So I leave a lot of room for mistakes to be made, not rudeness. Rudeness is one thing, mistakes are another. Oh, I'm so sorry. It took 30 minutes to get your meal out because the kitchen was slow. I got it. Keep me posted. I understand. You get a full tip from me. If you're rude to me directly, that's a total different matter. Unfortunately, I don't really have issues with that. So anyways, I want you just to think about that, that your wait staff could very well be hungry and I don't think this happens a lot, but clearly it happens because I've heard it now from 2 different people. People are eating the leftovers. They're eating the leftovers. Oh, by the way, before we start on the Ramsey thing, I remember when I was about 10 years old and my mom, it was my mom and my siblings, there were 4 of us, had gone out with my cousins, okay? So my aunt and uncle. So you got to figure there are 3 adults, aunt, uncle, and my mom, because my parents were divorced, and 7 kids, right? True story. We walk into this pizza restaurant, and kids love pizza, right? And we literally walked in. Now you got to think, 7 kids, all between the ages of about probably 6 to maybe 12. I might have been closer to 12. So maybe 6 to 12, because there were 7 kids, okay? Walked into a pizzeria, okay? Real nice. A family literally had just gotten up, walked away from the table, and had walked out the door. Now you got to think, 7 kids. They had left the equivalent of 3 trays of pizza on the table. I'm talking, I think it was a large family. So there were probably like 5 trays total. Well, 3 of these trays only had about 2 or 3 slices of pizza taken off it. And I remember the 7 of us kids, okay, we ran. No, we didn't walk. I mean, ran. We ran to the table. We looked at our parents, okay, and we said, look at all this food they left. Can we eat it? My parents about died. Okay. My mom and my, aunt, uncle, they just died because in their head, Just the whole idea that you would eat somebody else's food that had been sitting there. But the thing is it had been untouched. We were smart. We know what a pizza looks like when only one or two or three slices have been removed. But we were kids. And I remember just begging her, going, we were like, can we eat that? Can we eat this food? One, because, well, it was there and we're kids and we just want it. But the second thing that we couldn't understand, even though we were kids, okay, but we were all adopted. We all came from orphanages. So we actually had the experience of hunger. We understood it. But the second thing we couldn't understand is, how could all this food be left there? Now, maybe the kids who've always had, a food aplenty, all right, they've never been without. When I was living in Vietnam, I had one meal a day. It's part of the reason I'm such a slow eater, because I had to make food last for forever, because I didn't know when my next meal was. And of course, I had no concept, okay, that in first world countries, you get 3 square meals a day if you can afford it, okay? So in our heads, we were just blown away that a family could walk away, leave that much food on the table, that we, as adoptees from orphanages, all went, there is nothing wrong with this. I never, ever imagined that that would translate into me as an adult with waitstaff serving me, basically having the same thought, except it's because they can't afford it. All right. So I just thought that was interesting. I really want to keep this person's anonymity. I think I've done a pretty good job of it. Okay. But just the next time you go to a restaurant and you're thinking, oh, I'm too cheap to leave, 20%, leave 18. You know what? Leave the 20%. It is pennies on the dollar. But also, I think for me, it's made me a bit more sensitive having this conversation with her yesterday. And like I said, it's the second one I've had. Okay. But it's made me a bit more sensitive to be aware that the people that are serving us, not just in the food places, but at the gas station, your, game tickets or whatever, you don't know when the last time was that they ate and what desperate measures, people will go to make sure they're not hungry. And they can't be hungry because they got to be able to work. And you try working on an empty stomach. So anyways, that's the pre-show. She gave me some good education in this regards. And I thought, I would pass that on. So yeah, this is our, this is our economy. We have people who are eating leftover meals. And you know what? I can't fault them. I can't blame them for it at all. And who knows? I might do it as well. So something to think about. All right. Jamie writes in the chat, it's sad that our society has come to this desperation. Yeah, it is. I make sure I got my glasses. Yeah, I still need to pick up my glasses. They're actually ready to pick up. I just need to do it. I think I'll try to do that tomorrow. Yeah, it is. And, when people say desperate times call for desperate measures, and if you think about it, there are lots of stories, and you've probably heard some, family, about people who go to the dumpsters. They go to the garbage dumpsters behind businesses, and they'll scrounge around for food. It's also why a lot of businesses have locks now on their garbage dumpsters, because people literally will, okay? This isn't a past thing. This is current. People will literally climb into the dumpsters to look for food. And I'm willing to bet this happens more than we think. We always associate that with, third world countries, kids, that work around the garbage dumps and stuff, which is just another whole story itself. This channel doesn't focus on that, but we know it exists. Okay. That's what we think of. We don't think of that as much in the United States, but I'm willing to bet this happens more than we think. And if you're, waiter, waitress, and you can't make ends meet, food is highly unaffordable, and somebody orders a 3 taco meal and they eat 2 tacos and they leave one of them on the plate, think about it. What would you do? All right. That is the end.